Hey, dreamers, and welcome to Dreamers Unite, the talk show for dreamers. I am your host, Sherri Pullum, and as always, I am honored every single time you come to this channel to spend time with me. And if you're coming for the first time, I say welcome and please hit that subscribe button. And if you've come over and over and not yet subscribed, well, I'm going to say, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more elevating, uplifting, and educational and inspiring content. So today we have a wonderful guest on this show. Her name is Helen Archontou, and she is a community activist, a longtime community leader, and she is the CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. Helen Archontou is focused on guiding the YWCA Northern New Jersey into its next chapter of living, its mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and strengthen communities. In 2019, she was named among the powerful women of New Jersey in Senator Loretta Weinberg's 2019 Women Power List. And in 2020, Helen received the top 50 women in business from NJ Biz and the top 25 women in NJ Award from leading women entrepreneurs. Her love for social justice work is only topped by her love for her husband and her 7-year-old twins. Helen, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Dreamers Unite. I am honored to have you as my guest today, really.
I'm so grateful that you asked me to be part of your program, and so excited to talk with you and your viewers today.
Well, thank you so much. Well, before we even get started, okay, so Helen has twins, okay, and I want to let you know that that is something literally I prayed for. Everyone on my for my wedding, everybody was like, "Good luck with the twins. Have the twins. Have the twins." But guess what? God knew what He was doing. I do have 3 children, but they're 2 years apart, close to twins, but not. But I think God knew, you know what? Maybe Sherri, the twins isn't. But anyway, I just had to tell you, you with twins and doing all that you do right there, you are a superwoman.
Let me also say, and thank you, that's very kind, but let me also say, I had them late in life. I had my twins at 43 years old. And so I was very fortunate to have two of them because it really was obviously, at the back end of my, birthing opportunities and stories. People always say about the chaos and all that, but I guess the reality is I didn't really know any better because they're my first children. And so the life with twins just is, I have nothing to compare it to. And fortunately, because I've spent a lot of my career doing crisis work, I think I am very at home in chaos. So, but they're an absolute blessing and a joy, and I'm great. They're like an old married couple. They're very, very funny together, and they have their own little language. They bicker, all the stuff people say about twins, which I never believed is all true.
Are they identical?
I have fraternal. I have a boy and a girl.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but they're really, they're very, very funny, and also, so they have their similarities, but their individual, individual selves, come shining through also. But it's a blessing for sure. Funny. I always knew I wanted kids. I didn't always know that I wanted to get married or have a husband, because that's, my life choice. But I'm glad I love him and glad I have him and all of that. But I always knew I wanted kids. So it really was a dream for me to come true. And I'm sure that's linked with my caretaking, instinct,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is, every part of my life.
That is beautiful. Well, let's get into the social justice work that you do. And you have definitely moved the needle um, in the work that you do in women's empowerment and in social justice. And you've been doing it for a long time. What led you to the work that you're doing now?
Well, I always say I kind of had no choice. I was just wired this way from birth, I believe. I remember in kindergarten, on the schoolyard, kind of standing between two kids that were fighting and trying to protect the kid that was getting picked on. And then there's so many stories like that throughout, my growing up. So, when I look back and try to figure out the when, I can't figure out when it wasn't. I mean, it really was always in me. I think, and then, when I got to high school, I was student council, I was a peer counselor. So, I mean, again, it like led me all the way to this moment. College was a really defining time for me, though. It was there that I really cemented my commitment to social change, and I really honed in on my path for it, in terms of using community organizing as a strategy for being able to make a difference. And that made all the difference for me. And, I left college. I knew I wanted to be a helper. And I went into, I guess I became a legislative aide in an assemblyman's office, and learned kind of that environment, and learned so much there, but also learned that that probably wasn't for me at that time, and went to social work school, got my master's in social work. And that led me to, I guess, the journey that, brought me back here today, which was starting to work with sexually abused children, and their families. And just, I kept working in different agencies around that topic, I guess. And ultimately, funny enough, I think I've come full circle, and now I'm back working in the political realm again. So all I learned kind of at that first juncture that I thought was not for me, really kind of was the foundation for, all the helping and all the social justice work and all the nonprofit management, skill that I've gained over the years that, led me to being here today. And I really have spent the bulk of my career really being a voice for the voiceless, and, really being focused on marginalized communities. And I have to say it's my absolute honor, to work for, people in our community the way I do, and standing up for, racial and social equity is clearly my calling. And what I do is definitely my calling, and I'm very grateful that I found it early on, down back in kindergarten.
You maybe couldn't put words to it then, but you were taking steps and you were putting action to it.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
think that's what, they say, look, when you look back, I mean, they really were, I feel like every stage of my life were like puzzle pieces that just keep fitting together to kind of make the mosaic of who I am today.
I think that's true really for all of us. If we were to stop and do self-reflection and to do the work, we don't always like doing the work on ourselves, dreamers, people, but it's important that we stop, we take a minute, and, like you said, we're a mosaic of pieces and of gifts that come together.
Yeah, and the work is so important. I have to like jump off what you just said, because, I always, I'm also I'm a certified yoga teacher in a past life, that not now, but I always say, like, it's so important. I tell this to my students. I teach at Montclair State. I tell this to my kids. It's so important to listen to that little voice inside of you. You need to get quiet and hear it, because that really is how you find your path. I mean, it's really just like, the good witch, Glinda the Good Witch said in The Wizard of Oz, you had it all inside of you all the time. It really is all in there. It's all in there. You just have to get quiet enough to listen.
Okay, so you may not know, or you may know this. So I catch nuggets from my guest, and this is a nugget catching, and then I throw them out to my dreamers and to everybody's a dreamer. I say everybody is a dreamer. We all are. We all have a dream in our heart, and nothing is possible without the dream first. Nothing is possible without the intention and the thought first. Period, people. Everyone is a dreamer. This nugget I'm getting from you right now, Helen, is dreamers, sit quiet, look inward. That is part of the work and the processing that you need into your becoming.
Yeah.
I am grabbing that from Helen, and boom, there it is, dreamers. Catch that nugget, the first one for today. And I know there's probably many more to come from Helen, but that's number one. It is important to sit and know who we are. And that inward work helps you to define your path. Helen, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And speaking of the work, so the work and the mission of the YWCA, or one of the missions, is to combat racism, is to eliminate it. Talk about political climate and the culture that we're in right now. Is it possible? Is that realistic?
So, my quick response and my immediate response is yes. But let me also say I'm obviously answering from a place of privilege, and that I say something like that. I mean, there is no doubt that eliminating racism is a very, very lofty mission for an organization and for our team that is Magic, our team, by the way, but our team.
Shout out team, shout out YWCA, the New Jersey team. There you go.
Best of the best. But I have to say, I do feel like that this country seems to be at a turning point, boiling point. I don't know what the exact term is, but we seem to be in a place. We're watching protests in our communities, and the protesters seem to be more diverse in age and race than we've ever seen before in our nation's history. I mean, protesting is not new, but it's looking a little bit different finally for the first time. We're seeing town halls and trainings being hosted by state and national officials that are focused on systemic racism and implicit bias. And they seem to be having conversations in a very different way, because I think that they can see that they're being watched and being held accountable, and they need to be responsive to that. So I think that feels different for me. From my organization's perspective, I've been with the YW, I'm closing on my first decade with the organization. We've been asking funders, corporations, foundations for money to do racial justice work for many, many years now. And we always get a very polite letter back saying, thank you, we've got a lot of requests, but this isn't one that we're going to be funding. Just in the last 6 months, we've started seeing significant funding coming through for racial justice initiatives. And I think that that is very, very telling. And then take all of that and couple it with our election outcome. Now, let me just say, I'm not at all suggesting that we're there yet. And I am not at all suggesting that, we can all sit back and say, good job, the work is done. It is not done. There's many, many messages that we should be attuned to tell us that it's not done. There's so much more to be done. But I do believe that these are, these are also messages that can tell us that change can happen. I think the piece, though, that we need to really work on is the speed of change. Because it needs to be increased, significantly. The lives of Black and Brown people are in peril. And until we eliminate racism, that will continue to be the same. And also for Indigenous people and people of color, there is no time to waste. And we've already had so much, behind us where there's not been enough action. And I know I've spoken to so many amazing civil rights activists and listened to so many who were around from the time of Dr. King and forward. And they've said, I can't believe we're still doing this, right? But I have heard more than one of them say that it does finally feel a little different. So I'm hoping, I mean, again, I share all this from a place, of being a white woman, but I'm hoping that these are indicators that we're on the right path.
The wheels of change do grind very slowly. And you're right, we need accelerated change. I'm going to invite you to come on to Dreamers Unite, Activate Your Voice series. Started that series so that young people also could be in our conversation and have a voice, because their method may not be like our method all the time,
True.
but I think if it were not for these young people, they did accelerate some change. You know, this summer, I mean, really, it was an explosion of young people.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that that's part of, I think the uniqueness of what we're seeing is that, you know, the age range of who is participating, and that a lot of these efforts actually have been facilitated by the youth.
Yeah,
And it's also, you know, wonderful, you know, that I think those of us that are older have realized that we have a lot to learn from youth, and we need to start listening to them as well. That clearly our way hasn't worked, or else we wouldn't still be doing this, right? So
yeah.
we really need to look elsewhere for the answers. And I always say, you know, people say to me all the time, "Oh, I have so much hope in the youth; they're going to save us." And although I have a tremendous amount of hope in the youth. I also think, though, that's, you know, it's not right for us to leave that on them, you know, and just sit back and be like, okay, they're going to take care of it because they're amazing. You know what? We should take care of it and let them be amazing.
That's right.
And
That,
that's really what I try to, you know, take my lead from, you know, the various, you know, individuals and groups around me and help support.
you answered part of my next question, which was how can we as community be more supportive of one another? Um,
You
you
know,
answered part of that, but I'd love to explore that a little farther because really and truly, I believe it does start with the I first, right?
mhm.
And then it's that ripple effect. We can start moving out into our communities to make the change that we need. But it does start with an inward look and taking responsibility for ourselves and our own actions.
Yeah, and I think that's why true systemic change doesn't always happen, right? Because there's almost like two parallel processes that have to happen simultaneously. So one is the introspective and the individual journey someone has to go through, and then there's this like collective journey around us that has to happen, and there has to be this Venn diagram, right? Almost of these two circles intersecting, and then that's the magic place, right? And if we don't, if both of those things are not happening, then it's not, then we won't get to that magic place. And I think that's, you know, part of the challenge. But to go back to your question, what I really do believe is key, you know, key in being supportive and, you know, moving along these social justice efforts, you know, at least from me and, you know, my place and who I am is listening. You know, you know, white people and people like myself who are in positions with the opportunity to help support change. I mean, we need to start listening to Black people, Indigenous people, people of color. We need to get into their communities. We need to ask them what they need, and then we need to be quiet and listen to them.
Mm,
And in addition to that, I think there's a couple of other key things we need to do. One is we need to broaden our own mindsets. You know, very often we say we want to help be part of change, but it's almost like something we're pushing outward, like you're saying, and not really focusing on the inward, because there's decisions that I personally make that impact this goal, if it truly is a goal for myself. So one is voting, right? I can't vote and make decisions just for myself or people that look like me. I have to vote thinking about, you know, all of the marginalized groups, all of my friends of color, all of my Black friends. I have to think about all of them and their life experience when I'm casting my vote. I also have to think about them when I'm making my life decisions, like where am I sending my kids to go to school, and where am I buying my house, and what communities, you know, I choose, what businesses I choose to support. I mean, those are all
yes.
key life decisions that are part of really having a commitment to doing this work. And in addition to all of that, there is that kind of active process of creating a space and opportunities for Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. That it's not just, you know, and look, you know, I'm a woman, obviously, you know, part of our mission at the YW and my personal mission has always been about empowering women. But you want to know something? When I finally get to the table, I always have to pull another chair next to me. And then I have to make sure that there's you know, a Black woman or a person of color sitting in that chair with me, you know, with me and doing it together, that it never should be me doing it alone and being like, we've arrived, because, you know, that's not That's not true. But you are 100% right where you started this. This really does take introspection. It takes learning. It takes unlearning. And it really takes like a true life shift of, probably how you grew up. I mean, whether you had wonderful parents that, were well-intentioned with what they bestowed upon you, or whether you had the worst parents in the world or somewhere in between, when you get to a certain age, you have to start over.
That's right.
And you really have to, reframe and reform your brain into who do you want to be, and again, get quiet and listen, like we said earlier, listen to that voice in your calling. And this is why the YWCA of Northern New Jersey launched our 21-day social justice and racial equity challenge. It's an introspective journey that an individual can be part of. And for 21 days, they're going to get an email with a podcast or an interview or, a short article to read. And it's going to help them learn about race, power, and privilege and leadership. And, these are what we don't learn in school.
Yes.
This is what's missing in most of the curriculum that we are being taught formally. But these are also the key pieces of information that help us, become better humans. And so we encourage people to go on that journey and be part of that introspective journey. And that's one of the ways that at the YWCA we're trying to foster and promote.
How can people be a part of the challenge? Has it started yet?
Yeah, so it has started. It's ongoing. It is 21 days, as I said, from the time you sign up for 21 business days. We give you the weekends off to catch up and to sit with it. We actually have a closed Facebook group. People can join. You can go to our website, which is ywcanj.org, and you can sign up there. And we don't spam you with a lot of other stuff. We just put you into a space where you start getting these emails each day. And again, it's an introspective journey. But what I hope happens for people, and what I know happens for people, we have over 600 people that have done it to date, and we launched it this fall. So it's not been very long, but we're looking for that snowball effect. We want people to do it, and then we want people to have their networks join them. Because these are the conversations you should be having, with your family. You should be having them with your friends. And these, these learnings through this process helps create a framework for conversation, which has to be had. And in some way, being virtual is the perfect time to sit with this stuff because, we are a little bit, hopefully, cut off from some of the outside noise. And it is an introspective journey. So you do get to, read and learn and unlearn and sit with it and then share.
I love that. Okay. So 21-day challenge. I'm going to take it. I'm encouraging my family and friends. I'm going to send out a blast.
I'm going to send you the link when we're done.
Send me the link. As soon as you're done, I'm going to send out a blast and we're going to keep track of it here at Dreamers Unite. I'm going to make that commitment. Like I said, it starts with the I, just to do small things that can turn into the ripple effect and make big change, big impact. I also want to talk a little bit about in that living the life purpose, sometimes we do get sidetracked. And I want to talk, you shared something with me before offline that you had an incident that changed your life. And I was going to talk to you about I'm going to think this had to be a very challenging time, probably one of the most challenging times. So as we're on our purpose, sometimes we can get sidetracked. So can you tell us about that journey you went through and how did you overcome that?
Sure. And what I'd also say is, are we ever really sidetracked, or was that really always meant to be our path?
Yes, bring me back. Bring me back, Helen.
And it's funny, so when I was 19 years old, young in college, exciting time in my life, I was in a car accident, and a drunk driver hit me from behind and shattered 2 of the vertebrae in my neck. And literally, like, overnight, life changed, or I should say within minutes, life changed. And I ended up being rushed to the hospital and, needing surgeries and having quite a recovery. that came with that process. And I'm sorry, I said 19, but I was actually 25. I don't know why I said 19. I'm stuck in a different, but I was 25 when it happened. And so I ended up needing, surgeries, and I ended up needing how to learn how to walk again. I ended up, being, back with, my parents, and my parents taking care of me again, like a baby, like when I was a
Wow.
child, and having this whole role reversal, with them. And so it was, and I was recovering for 10 months. I mean, it was a 10-month recovery. And for the first few months, I was absolutely immobile. I was in one of those large halos, in bed, in a hospital bed, in my parents' home for a very long time. And then I was in physical therapy for a very, very long time. So it was a traumatic life experience, but I'll tell you a couple things about it. As one, it, we were talking about, when the two of us were chatting before, how, COVID and lessons, and hopefully when this is all over, will we remember the lessons that we've learned now? And that's how I shared the story with you. And, what I would say is, it did change me. I also believe, though, I was probably set a certain way before, but it did change me. And I think that it has helped me put into perspective. They say don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. And that really is true. That, it's not that there aren't important things happening in life, but, there really needs to be perspective. And that there also are a lot of learnings that come from an experience like that. I mean, I really, sat in bed for a long time, but I ended up reading all of the books that I always wanted to read. I ended up spending a lot of time with people that I loved, who, were very kind and cared for me because I couldn't. I was very humbled because I couldn't wash my hair for 6 months, and couldn't, from, those perspectives, you kind of put, things that, it's lovely to always look wonderful and be on and be perfect. But at the end of the day, your own self-love and people's love for you, really can't be about that, because that's not, at our core. So, there was definitely a lot of learning that came from it, and perspective setting. And I've kept it. I've definitely kept it. And I also have, some remnants from that life experience, aches and pains in my body that are good reminders, that as much as, we think maybe we're Superwoman or Wonder Woman, or, any of these, heroes, at the end of the day, we're just a person.
Yeah.
We're just a person. And it also, I think, helped put perspective for me, especially when at a lot of the work that I do. I mean, I was very lucky. I had health insurance, I had family, I had a place to live, and I had the ability to be able to stop working for all of that time and still, be fed and cared for, and and nurtured to be able to get back into the world. And a lot of people don't have all of that. And so, again, it was very perspective setting and reinforcing about, my life and the good that comes with it, for sure.
You're such a brilliant, bright light. You really are, Helen. That story, when you told it to me, and it still does move, like as soon as you said it, I just got goosebumps. And, when things happen to us, many times they happen for us. And a lot of times, like you said, we think they're happening to us. And it really happened for you in ways that it probably opened up a whole new perspective for you. And thank you so much for sharing that. Sometimes an incident like that can, oftentimes, people can become recluse,
Mm-hmm.
bitter, angry. I think you said one of the key things too. You looked at and started to focus on what you did have as opposed to what you didn't. You focus on gratitude.
Yeah, and gratitude is big for me, and always has. I've always kept a gratitude journal. I'm a big believer of not thinking about what you don't have and thinking about what you do have. But again, that's because I have, and again, that's a privilege of my life, and I'm grateful for that. And so I think that's also why when I see others who don't have, I really do believe, and again, that's, my calling to help create capacity for that with others, because again, I've been very blessed, and I don't, I never see it any other way but that, no matter what has fallen in front of me. And, like everyone, I've had life challenges, but I also have such, privilege and gratitude for all that I do have.
And I'm so grateful that you have that awareness and that you're sharing that. And so maybe others will have the awareness with you. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to ask you, I literally don't even want this conversation to stop. You're going to have to come back for sure. We already know you're going to. We're going to do the challenge, and then we're going to bring people back to really have the conversation. Yeah. I'm going to ask you to complete a sentence. Before I leave this planet, I want to.
I want to leave it a better place for those that come after me.
Helen, and I believe you have already, and I believe that you're going to continue to do the work that you're doing and continuing to spread the light. It's one thing to be the CEO of the YWCA, but it's another thing to actually live and practice in that work, not just because it's your career and a job, but because it's what you believe and it's part of who you are. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Let me also say, though, it's never done. It's a constant state of learning, and it's also an up and down. I mean, as much as I know, I don't know it all. And I think that's the important thing to remember, is that you can never really check it off that it's done. I just always think that, because, I with all my racial justice and social justice work that I've done, there's still things that, internally that I have to work on, and, have the mirror up to me,
Oh, yeah.
But that is where the awareness, and that is where the quiet, and, the ability to step away, from when you feel something rising and look at it and figure out what to do with it, I think is key. And, having opportunities to talk about it like you've given me today, though, is also a gift, because you, say things and remind yourself, also of things you've been carrying, and, and of responsibilities and accountabilities that you have. So it's good. Life is good when we are connected to each other and sharing.
And I am so glad we had a chance to have this opportunity to connect. And you're right. This is going to be my last nugget for you dreamers today, anyway, not the last, but we have to continue to be ongoing learners. Be curious, continue to learn not only about yourself, but about others. So that way you can have compassion and empathy for others. My father used to say all the time, you never know who will bring you your last drink of water. And so you may be going along in your life and everything is fine. And just like Helen, in an instant, something can change. So remember, continue to keep learning, continue to keep growing and staying open to it all. And it's a constant. The work is never done. That's why we can't say we ever arrived, because as Michelle Obama says, we're becoming.
Yeah.
Dreamers. Boom. Last nugget for today, only for today. Helen, I cannot thank you enough for this time that you spent with me. And dreamers, if you have not yet subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. After this rich conversation, I know you must want more. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button and certainly hit the blue bell for more uplifting, motivational, and entertaining educational content. I will see you again next time.